and it says we're live. So I am going to start speaking because the last thing I want to do is not say anything and have people click off. What I would like for you to do is to start spreading the news. Dr. Stephan Esser is in the classroom, and he is an orthopedic, non-surgical orthopedic doctor in Jacksonville, Florida, who is whole food, plant-based. And I'm so excited because we're going to learn about food as medicine. We're going to continue our conversation basically, because we talk about this a lot, and it is so much time. It is time for those of you who are new to start learning things that we were not taught when we were kids. So fasten your seatbelts. Oh, before we fasten our seatbelts, I've got to turn on my record button. I remember everything. That's what happens. Okay, so fasten your seatbelts because we're going to learn and grow with Dr. Stephan Esser. So it's time to dance. Time to dance, Dr. Esser.
All right, I'm excited to be joining you. Thanks for the invitation.
Okay.
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here. Right here, and when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for
you. This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening friends. So nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful best day ever. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friends on Facebook and YouTube, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, several years ago, probably 3 years ago, when I first started the classroom, actually it was just a radio show at the time in Jacksonville, I went searching for whole food, plant-based practitioners in Jacksonville. And I thought, are there any? Well, there are some incredible whole food, plant-based doctors, practitioners in the Jacksonville area. But someone kept telling me about Dr. Esser. And so I made it out to Dr. Esser. And boy, was I so excited. It's taken us a long time to get him in the classroom today, but I'm glad that we are having this conversation now. So it's so important because we have learned from this COVID-19 and everything that's happening that if we are healthy, we can do just about anything and everything, even avoid getting sick. But today we're going to look at food as medicine with Dr. Stephan Esser, MD. He's an MD, and he is non-surgical orthopedic doctor. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. Stephan Esser is here to do just that. Thank you, Dr. Esser, for being in the classroom today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity to share with you and your listeners.
Yes. And so share a little bit about your background because you have a remarkable story in the sense that this was something like I wasn't taught good nutrition. I was taught nutrition and I thought it was good. But share a little bit about your background and what led you to becoming a doctor and have that passion for whole food plant-based.
Well, so I'm a fourth generation plant-based eater. So my great-grandfather is the one who had some health conditions and started researching how powerful food could be. This is at a time back in the early 1930s tens, if you will. And at that time, he realized food was powerful based upon the studies that he was reading, the work of Troll, the work of Father Kneipp in Germany, all these different leaders in the health living world. And so he began to, eat healthy food, exercise with his children, improved his health. And as a result, my grandfather, Dr. William L. Esser, he went on to become a naturopath and chiropractor trained in the New York College of Naturopathy back in the 1920s, 30s, and went on to then run a healthy living facility for almost 70 years, 65 of those years in Lake Worth, Florida, where on 10 acres of land, he had over 30 people at a time who had come from around the world to reverse disease, lose weight, get off medications, and maximize their health. So I grew up in my grandfather's home. That's where I lived. And I grew up watching people at the ranch radically restore their health. And so that example to me was amazing. I grew up in a relative land of miracles. And so I went from that experience to saying, well, I want to be able to share that same passion for health and healthy living with people. And I made the decision then to go on to medical school, went to the University of South Florida in Tampa, and I went on to residency at Harvard and fellowships in sports medicine at Mayo Clinic. And so along the way, picking up the best in modern medicine and then bringing that together with the best in traditional medicine. And so as a result, in my practice, now I have the opportunity of practicing everything from cutting edge stem cell therapies to traditional acupuncture to amazing lifestyle interventions with food. And what a delight to bring the best medicine to people that combines what you said, the truth about the human body and its potential for healing.
Absolutely. And when I learned about you, and you and I had that quick exchange, I don't know if you remember, but I visited you and you came out to see me. And I learned that your grandfather helped Dr. Joel Fuhrman. And I bet you he was so influential that it completely changed his journey as well. So this is like the gift that keeps on giving. And I see so many kids today. And I mean, I grew up with a mother that made all her meals, but my mom's about 86 right now, or going to be 86. But that's when like convenience food started really popping up, like the TV dinner, canned vegetables, all that. And my mom bought into all of that. That was how I was born, with Spanish rice and beans and meat and all that. Very little vegetables, more rice and beans and meat. And so as I got older, my body didn't respond very well to that, and to the point where I am whole food plant-based and have been since 2013, 2012. And so my life has changed dramatically, but this is something that I stumbled upon. I would love for you to share, when people come to you and you start talking to them about food, and they're coming to you because their knee hurt or their back hurts, or what do they look like when you start talking about food as medicine?
Everybody's a little bit different. And it reminds us that we're each in a different stage of change or a stage of becoming. Prochaska, the well-known psychologist, really laid that out and said, each of us in different phases and times of our life, where we're in pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, or maintenance. And you can apply that to yourself and think about where you are right now in the different phases of your life. And if it comes to food, exercise, sleep, emotional poise, all these different areas. And so many patients, when they come to see me, just are coming to talk about their knee, let's say, or their shoulder or their back. And I come out of left field suddenly for them to talk about, food. Yeah. And they're somewhat surprised. And what's a beautiful thing to see is that the delivery of the message, if it's delivered in a way with love and compassion, empathy, and enthusiasm, can be incredibly powerful. I had a guy today, it was beautiful to see, came in to see me with some chronic low back pain, carrying a lot of extra weight, a bunch of other problems. And he heard the message and he felt and he resonated with it last time we saw each other. So he started a 4-week nutritional program that I have that's online at Esser Health. And in 1 week, he lost 18 pounds. And not only did he do that, but now he shared with all his family members. And he's got 20-something people in his family who are all doing in different parts of the world. And they're Zooming like we are, and they're discussing how they're doing and sharing how it's going, et cetera. And that's what I want every one of your viewers to remember. You may not go healthy living, plant-based, et cetera, for yourself, but maybe you'll do it for your children, your grandchildren, or your great-grandchildren. And so the power of the personal choices you're making have radical ripple effects throughout time and history. And that's what's amazing. So no longer is it just about the food in your mouth. It's about what it's doing to all those around you and the example you're being to them. So it's just a beautiful message. And so many of my patients, they resonate with this. They hear it. They begin to unpackage a little bit for themselves. Before you know it, they're off and running. And now our results are so gorgeous. And you can see it on Instagram or Facebook, some of my posts about people, 20 pounds, 35 pounds, off blood pressure meds, off diabetic meds, knee pains, 90% better, back pains better. The body wants to be well. And nutrition truly is the foundation of good health.
So absolutely. So let's go back to the, I've been recently talking and I've shared about the COVID-19 and how we've been looking at health and how health is the best way to support our body, optimal health, so that if a virus or something happens, it'll skip our body or our body won't respond to it as severe as some other people. But as we're looking at, the choices out there, there's a lot of division. And so for many years, the word and the terminology vegan was out there. And so now it's whole food, plant-based. And I understand the concept behind having the different names, but I'd love for you to share, why did the whole food, plant-based community feel that it was important to kind of separate and focus on whole food, plant-based, as opposed to being vegan?
Great question. I think there are unfortunately a lot of negative connotations to the V words, right? Whether it be vegetarian or vegan, especially, now I'm well into my 40s, and having lived now all these years as plant-based, I can tell you personally of the verbal harassments, the mockery, that you went through as a kid, as a young adult, et cetera. And the reality is, all too often people just say, oh, you're a hippie. Oh, this is, voodoo, so on and so forth. And when I went to medical school, at first I thought, yeah, this must just be my grandfather's opinion, so on and so forth. But I actually started digging into the scientific literature. And what did I find? The decade after decade, from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and on, it was study after study showing that eating more plant-based foods reduced your risk of the most common diseases. And so it wasn't voodoo, it wasn't hippie stuff. It was the real deal, the best science out there that's showing that an excellent nutritional plan was even more effective than blood pressure meds for blood pressure, even more effective than oral diabetic meds for diabetes. And so the data was all there. And so I think that this move to use the term whole food plant-based, number one, is in response to the negative connotations of being unscientific or being part of a cult, right? Number two is the fact that you can be, quote, vegan, doing it for the animals, if you will, and eating nothing but French fries, Diet Coke, and a white bun. Well, that's not health promoting, right? Yeah. So that might be good for the animals, but it is not good for the human who's consuming it.
That's right.
And the beauty of the whole food plant-based message, I think, is number one, this is science-based, credible data that drives the decision-making. And number two, it's also great for the planet and great for animals. So it's a win-win on all fronts. So yeah, I mean, to me, I try not even to put myself in a box. I'm 6'5", I don't fit in a lot of boxes.
No, you don't.
But the reality is, putting yourself into a box enforces on you certain requirements that some people think go with that box and that term and title. So even as a young boy growing up, I never said I was vegan or vegetarian. I said we eat healthy. And I think that allows you the freedom too, that let's say you're at someone's house and we're in Florida, we'll say alligator tail, and they, all over and again, they just say, please try this teensy little piece. Well, you can choose to say, no, I don't want to eat that because it's an animal and I want to respect its sentient nature. Or if that's not your reason to do this and you want a little tiny piece of alligator tail, you haven't violated your cultish requirements, right? Or feel like you failed in some way, right? So, because the reality is we're not looking for perfection here. We're looking for excellent health. And excellent health comes from, again and again, the same patterns of behavior that cultivate your health. So the beauty of using that term plant-based says that the majority of the food you're eating, right, are plants. And if you choose to eat a little bit of unhealthy food, the dairy, let's say, or refined things, that's your decision. Not the best for you. I don't advise it. Yeah. But it means you haven't broken a law or left a cultish, environment. So good data, good science, and we avoid all of the negative connotations. So
yeah, I love that. I love that because the worst thing we can do for ourselves is sabotage. Yes. And we do that in so many different ways. Well, I can't live up to that standard, so I'm not even going to try. There's so many ways that we can do that to ourselves, even putting unrealistic goals in front of us so that once we fail, we say, see, I knew I'd failed. This doesn't work. So I'm going to go back to eating the way I was taught to eat or I feel comfortable with, which the comfortable part of eating healthy, it's like if you take something that you loved as a child, you can make it whole food, plant-based and healthier so that maybe you can have that flavor, bring that memory back. There's so many different ways that we can do this. And so going back, there's a couple of things I wanted to ask you. These are personal questions, and if you don't want to answer, that's fine too. But did you ever feel rebellious where you said, I don't want to eat whole food, plant-based. I don't want to step out of the crowd, maybe with the pressures of being a teenager, and your friends going, oh, that's weird, or calling you a hippie. You said you grew up with all these names. Did you ever feel that you wanted to step away from that and just be Stephan?
No. And now I'll tell you the reason why. My parents did a really great job of indoctrinating us.
Yes.
Let's be honest about it. If you're wanting to share information with your children in a way to motivate them to a direction, right, in their life, you're essentially indoctrinated with something that may or may not be true, depending upon who the parent is. In the case of my parents, right, we had hands-on experience with health. We'd see patients coming from the ranch and their health responses, people who had been like, wow, I was almost dead and your grandfather got me better, right? I was on 15 medications and I got well. Next was our personal experience as kids. So the only time we would ever get sick during the year is around big holidays when maybe we had some ice cream or a bunch of, all these sugary foods, et cetera. And then all of a sudden we get congestion, we get a little sore throat. We're like, what's going on? But as soon as we would fast a day or two, eat a bunch of green vegetables and stuff, rest, we'd get well. And so we had a very personal experience there. Then we had the stories and the anecdote of patients. And then we also got all the movies, right? So as the movies were coming out, some of the great ones, Diet for All Reasons, right? From Dr. Clapper back in the day and others, these were great films. So we as young people would be laying there watching this,
Wow.
But also for me, I grew up with my grandfather. So I'd be at the ranch every Sunday. He'd do a free lecture. We'd have, 40, 50 people, 100 people, whatever out there. And I'd be sitting in the back listening to him preach, right? Essentially, preach the message of health. And so that was very impactful, right? And so to see people's lives transformed, to see my own life healthy, right? Because remember, so we ate this way. I ended up being #1 in the US in men's open doubles tennis in 2002. So so we were able to perform at a very high level of sport all during our teenage years on this excellent program with very low rates of injury and the rest. And so to see people thriving in this way is powerful reinforcement. And our parents would teach us, right? We drive by a place like McDonald's. Hey, what's that place? That looks like fun. My parents would say, well, that's actually only where very poor people or uneducated people go. Whoa, talk about indoctrination, right? But isn't that the truth? There's no reason we should be driving into fast food places. There's nothing there for you that's going to promote your health. So the only time you should go there is if there's absolutely nothing else you can get into. And if you need to go there, you get the oatmeal, right? You get the little salad, you get, you get the apple slices, and that's what you do. And so when I would travel with my collegiate tennis team and they went to McDonald's, that's what I'd get. And I'd also pack a bunch of nuts and other stuff in my bag from home so I'd have food. So to this day, that's what I do, right? And so the reality is youth need to be taught it's okay to be different.
That's right.
If the reason you're being different is for a good cause and a good purpose.
It will drastically change the way our health care will be in the future if we teach our children young. Dr. Furman and I have done a lot of classes about that, and I've talked about it. Like I see in my own children that as I was in my late 40s, because I always, I ate well as an adult. As I left the home, I was curious about nutrition. I have an aunt who taught me about nutrition when I was 16 years old, and she made a huge impact on me. And so I returned to it, believe it or not, I returned to it, but I returned to it by not eating animal like cow or pork. That was my way of being healthy. But what brought me back full circle was food allergies. I developed allergies to not just the food, but the pesticides in the food. And so that woke me up. And so I always had to look, and I've been made fun of for the way I eat for such a long time. And here I am at my age, I'm able to tolerate some things that other people would not tolerate that are younger than me. So food does make a difference. And you know it, and I know it. But when you were in medical school, And you were learning medication management. How did that work for you?
Very challenging for my ethics, right? Because
Mhm.
the whole time I just wanted to scream and yell and say, wait, but you're not talking about Ornish's studies. Wait, you're not talking about Pritikin's studies. Wait, you're not talking about the French studies that showed eating a bunch of rice and people reversed, their diabetes, et cetera. And so it was very frustrating. It was very difficult ethically for me to just sit there and learn about pharmacology. Now,
Yeah.
let's be honest, pharmacologic approaches have their place, right?
Yes, they
And so
do.
they definitely can be life-saving for many people.
Mhm.
However, the majority of people today who are on medications in America, the majority need not be on them if they made radical changes in how they eat, how they exercise, and how they live their life. Because what are the number one sellers? They're blood pressure meds, diabetic meds, and high cholesterol medications like statins. And then all the things that come as a side effect, the erectile dysfunction drugs, right? And the antidepressants, which people are on all these drugs because they're overweight and deconditioned. And of course, they're depressed. So the reality is we could radically change all of that with our food. I found it fascinating to learn. I love learning. I want to be a lifelong learner when I was in medical school. But it was fascinating just to see the level of lack of education and what was going on because, in 4 years of medical education, the average med student gets less than 4 to 6 hours of nutritional education. And that nutritional education is all about deficiencies of various vitamins like pellagra and beriberi and kwashiorkor and marasmus and scurvy, which of course none of us ever see in clinic ever. And
Yeah.
yet we're learning about those. So if you want to live in sub-Saharan Africa, sure, learn about marasmus and kwashiorkor, which are deficiencies of protein and of total calories. But why are we learning about that when we never see it? And instead of learning how we could reverse heart disease, right, with food, how we could reverse type 2 diabetes with food. But we have to remember, so doctors are taught in medical school what they are reimbursed for in society at the time.
Correct.
Because if you teach me all about how to steam broccoli and prepare a nice salad in medical school and I get out, I'll be impoverished and $200,000 in debt because I can't make money selling broccoli.
Mhm.
And yet that is incredibly powerful for people. But unfortunately, the doctors don't get educated in it. They don't get reimbursed for it. So the patients never hear it. So it was great to be in medical school and learn so much, love many of those experiences I had. But I mean, it was just silly stuff. I mean, like a barbecue on day one of med school and not a lick of lettuce or fruit anywhere. And I'm going, so I walked up to the dean and I said, hey, dean, my understanding is heart disease is the number one cause of death in America. Any salad next time? And he looked at me like, who is this guy?
Wow.
And but then what did he do? The next year when there's a big barbecue of, hey, everybody, welcome to school, there was a big salad and there was fruit. And I started a preventive medicine and healthy living interest group on campus, right? And had speakers come in and I paid for the food myself to be there for these people. So, it was a great experience and hopefully a good one for the people I was surrounded with as well.
That's incredible. Again, and it comes from that early teaching, and you were taught very well. And I'm glad that you remained. I've interviewed Helen Saul. She is Dr. Saul. His first name just left my brain, but Dr. Saul is from Food Matters. Ellen as soon as she left the home, she started having all the foods that she wasn't supposed to have. She was having carrot juice every day. And when she left the home, it was like rebel. I want to do whatever I want to do and blend in with the crowd. Well,
Yep.
She not only returned to it, she was her first time ever having to take antibiotics. And she returned to the way her father was eating. And not only that, now she teaches her children. She gives her children carrot
Of
juice every
course.
day. And it's just Dr. Andrew Saul, the name just came to me. Dr. Andrew Saul is just a great example of how when you teach your children young, even if they go away and they go through that detour, they will come back and return to it. So you are John the Baptist of eating well and food as medicine. And I've attended some of your lectures as well. So what would you say to my listeners? And by the way, for those of you who are watching on Facebook or YouTube Live, feel free to tell us where you're from. If you have a question, type in a Q and we'll ask Dr. Esser your questions. So feel free to do that. If you feel embarrassed and you want to text me your question, text me at 407-373 5959. Okay, so Dr. Esser, what are some of the things that you recommend people do to start this mentality of food as medicine?
I think the first thing is to go for a nice relaxed walk or to sit quietly in your home, turn all the electronics off, and really just spend a little time with yourself, because being with yourself can be a little scary at times. But it's important to really just be honest, And maybe some people it's looking in the mirror for a moment and just saying, where am I in my journey? Is this where I want to be? I tell people also, don't forget, right now you're creating your health for the next 10, 20 years. Are you creating the health that you want?
Yeah.
Or are you right now so tied into addictive patterns and behaviors and habits and stressors and all the rest that everything's out of control? And this is not who you wanted to be. And this is not the path you want to be on.
Yeah.
So that's the first place. Where am I right now? You have to be really honest with yourself. Am I achieving the health that I know I want and that I deserve right now? And if you look in the mirror and you say, no, I'm not. This is not where I wanted to be. This is not where I thought I'd be, right? 100 pounds overweight, on 5 medications, feeling sluggish and fatigued all the time, chronically with nasal drainage, whatever it might be. Because the reality is you may not have to be there, and we can help. And so that's the first place. Where am I? A true assessment of self. The next one is to say, well, why does my health matter? Maybe write on a piece of paper. Why does my health matter? Is it because you're tired of the pain in your joints? You're tired of taking ibuprofen 4 times a day to try to help with your back pain? Is it because you really can't play with your grandkids? Can't walk up a flight of stairs and being out of breath, right? What are your reasons, right, to get healthy? And once you make that list, now you can begin to say, well, do the things that Lillian and Dr. Esser are talking about, are these things that I need? Is nutrition actually going to help me? Will exercise actually help me? So on and so forth. So I think the first place is, where are you in your journey of life? And the health modifications, will they help you to achieve a better sense of you, a greater vitality, a greater energy, and allow you to kind of really achieve the personhood and the life that you've always dreamed of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are the 2 questions that you can sit and ask and be honest with yourself. And knowing your why is crucial for anyone. I know that when I am trying to get motivated, or if I know, I was in an automobile accident in Jacksonville when I first started the radio show there. And, my why, even if I had pain in my body, my why was so important to get there and do the class or do the show at the time, or do whatever it took, maybe, interact and teach this information to others. My why was much bigger than my pain. And so when our why is bigger than being comfortable or whatever is happening, that's when change does happen. So what would you say is the first step after that, after you have that talk with yourself and become aware of your why? Then how do they make that first step towards cleaning out their pantry, their refrigerator? What would you say is important at that point?
And that's where it's important that we're, again, honest with ourselves, because there are 2 major paths here. It's the same idea of getting into the proverbial pool. Are you the type of person who likes to inch in slowly and to get accustomed to the cooler water? Or are you just jumping up and cannonballing in to the deep end? Because you need to know that about yourself. Are you the person who makes little steps forward, but then is going to give up because you don't see results? You got to be honest. So I like people to I have a little that I hand out in clinic, or you can purchase on my website. It's a 4-week nutritional detox. It's 4 weeks. Everything's written in there: what to eat, how much, how to prepare the food, how to buy it, and then a bunch of great stories. And on average, right, we get 20 to 40 pounds of weight loss in 1 month for men, 15 to 25 for women. Pain improves 30 to 90% in joints. Cholesterol drops 30%. Blood pressure, 80% of people get off their meds in 4 weeks. I mean, that's amazing. And so I love people to do that. Why? Because they make big changes, but they get big results. And now they can no longer say, well, I'm not sure if it works or if this doesn't work. You know how you feel and what happens. Now, if you're the person, though, who says, no, I'm too anxious, I'm too overwhelmed right now, I can't do that. Well, then what I say is, here's what I want you to do. Add more color to every plate every day. Eat the rainbow. Now, is that, if you're willing to eat a little greens and berry smoothie with some bananas, great. If you're willing to have a pint of raspberries for your dessert instead of the ice cream, great. If you're willing to add a little side of steamed kale or steamed spinach or steamed broccoli, great. Because all of those, I love to think of it this way, all of those are little moments of health. And if you string enough of those little moments of health together, they're like little droplets in a painting that now begin to create this gorgeous mural of your life. So each one of those little moments of health, healthy moments, they build up over time until now your entire life is just this gorgeous garment of health. And that's what you should be striving for. And so the more you can add the color into what is a black, white, gray, blah sort of diet, now you're overwhelming little by little more and more color. The rainbow's coming, your health improves, your mood improves, you feel greater self-efficacy, and before you know it, it's a whole new you. And that's the goal.
That is the goal. That is the goal. And for those of you who have heard me talk about the Heal Tribe, we just started, we did a challenge. We did Dr. Furman's infection protection, the COVID. I don't know if you saw that he did something like that. It's a 21-day where it's similar to all the what to eat, what to buy, the recipes and all of that. But it was 21 days. And so I just want to encourage you that if you want to try something like that, or if you want to start making that step, you have a group to go to. It's called the Heal Tribe. That's Healthy Eating and Living Tribe. And it started in Jacksonville, went to Melbourne, and we decided we're just going to make it virtual so anyone around the world can be a part of it. We just ask that you share your pictures. We will motivate one another to remain healthy. It is so important and vital that we realize that we are in control. We can take our health back. And I'm sure, Dr. Esser, you could share some stories. We have a question here from Isla, and I want to encourage all of you, if you have any questions, to please go ahead and feel free to ask. Okay, so it says Q2. So you have two questions. What can I give my father so he can get strong immune? He is diabetic and has pain from arthritis. That's her first question. And then the second one was, what can I eat or take for menopause?
First question, the more bright, colorful, fresh things you get into your father, the better. Studies show us that the more greens, the more berries, the more allium, which would be like your onion and garlic, things like ginger, some mushrooms, all of those are powerful for the immune system. They enhance your natural killer cell activity, your lymphocyte activity, and the production of antibodies that give your body the ability to identify viruses and bacteria over time. So the more of those foods you can get into him, the better. And again, as salads, as fresh, as steamed, as sauteed, or as smoothies, or as fresh juices, all of the above. The more, the better. With regards to menopause, it's fascinating. You know, women who are plant-based actually have lower amounts of menopausal symptoms, and in large part related to excessive quantities of various forms of estrogen, which is an estrone 3, estrone 6, estrone 9, different forms in our body. And so women who are plant-based consume more fiber, and the fiber in the gut binds up more of the excess estrogen and you poop it out. And as a result, often you have fewer of these symptoms with these big hormonal changes. Of course, there are lots of other things you can consider, the red clovers, right? And a host of other postmenopausal or menopausal hot flash type symptom reducers that are more supplements and the like. But I'd start with the food because you might just be blown away with how powerful it is for your symptoms.
Absolutely. And that is one of the things that we don't even want to absorb. We don't want to absorb the fact that it is that simple, that we can change our lifestyle and with food and completely change and transform our body. So I'm sure that in your years, you said you had been in sports medicine for how long?
About 10 years now.
About 10 years. And those 10 years, and probably prior to that, what is the story you think of that if this person can do it, anyone can do it? Does any story come to mind of someone that you helped transform their life?
I mean, I've got hundreds and hundreds of stories, but I think one of the great ones that pops to mind, a 74-year-old guy who was about 45 pounds overweight, came to see me with chronic low back pain. Also on his med lists, I noticed, oh, you've got hypertension, you've got psoriasis, you've got chronic hand arthritis, and a host of other problems. I said, hey, give me 4 weeks of your life. What do you have to lose? He said, nothing. So he did my program for 4 weeks, and he went to the physical therapist I sent him to. And that beautiful pillar combination of excellent nutrition and movement, he came back 5, 6 weeks later. He was 30 pounds down. He was off all his blood pressure medicines. His back pain was 90% better, and he was now going to the gym. His psoriasis that was on his body was almost completely gone. And his hand pain and swelling in the hands was almost completely gone. He was getting his wedding ring resized. I mean, come on. Come on. I mean, but the stories go on and on. I mean, a guy the other day, it was 75 or 6, 100 pounds overweight and stage 3 kidney failure, did my program for 4 to 6 weeks, reversed his kidney failure, got off blood pressure meds, and pain improved radically. I mean, so it's just, the power of the human body is remarkable when it's given what's intended for. So think about it like a nice car. You get that nice car that's intended for unleaded fuel. And if every day you're putting diesel in it, all kinds of problems happen. The fuel filter goes out, the seals go out, the carburetor gets crusty, everything. Yet in the human body, if this happened and you began to get blood pressure, diabetes, you start calling it different names, all different, quote, diseases. Yet the reality is you're putting the wrong fuel in. So when it comes to our cars, if someone says, hey, all that will get better if you just put unleaded fuel in, we go, oh, that makes sense. I guess it's meant for that. But if you say to somebody, hey, eat healthy food and your reflux goes away, your blood pressure goes away, your diabetes goes away, they go, what? No, that's too crazy. It couldn't be. But it's the exact same thing. Our body is a vehicle that is intended for certain fuel. When you violate what it's recommended for, you get all a host of diseases that we as humans have given different names to, and they're all the same problem. You're giving food to the body that it doesn't deserve, and it is not meant for.
I know, and that's the puzzling thing that I don't understand. Everybody knows, Dr. Esser, that if you put diesel in your gas tank when it doesn't take diesel, that your car might malfunction. Everybody goes, well, duh. But nobody makes that jump. Like when they don't know, they don't make that jump and say, okay, I'm worth more than a car. I'm worth more than a machinery. My body is a machine, and my body has a gas tank too. And it is so important that we know what fuel to put in our body. And when it malfunctions, we go, oh, I wonder what it could be. And we blame it on diabetes. Like diabetes all of a sudden jumped on us, attacked us, and we were just like innocent bystanders and didn't know that this could happen. Why is it that when people come and they abuse their body, they don't even know they're abusing? It's not intentional. It was learned and conditioned, just like you were conditioned. And we condition ourselves to say, oh, because I'm getting older, I'm getting diabetes. Or how do you reframe the mindset to say, it wasn't the diabetes that got you sick, it was the food.
Right. Well, there are two parts that are at play here, aren't there? So there's been a medical system that, if you go back and look at the Flexner report in history, this was in 1911, and it was paid for essentially by the big gas companies who began to realize that pharmaceuticals would be the future and healthcare would be the future, and it was no longer gas that would make all the money. And that's why pharmaceuticals continue to be at the top of all of the stock charts, anywhere in the world. And so what happened is in that Flexner report, remember, there used to be homeopathic, osteopathic, naturopathic, and allopathic or MD schools all over the US.
Yeah.
And the Flexner report was written in such a way, which is a review of medical education, that said true medical education looks at pharmacology and looks at all these specific things that were all allopathic in nature. And all the naturopathic schools, like Hahnemann Medical School in Philadelphia, it's named after the founder of homeopathy. It was a homeopathic medical school. UMDNJ, it was homeopathic and naturopathic. It got converted because the Flexner report said we will no longer give money to schools that don't adhere to exactly what we want to preach. And so as a result, all medical education became either us or them. So allopaths versus chiropractic, naturopathic, osteopathic, et cetera. So over time, the allopathic model was purely drugs and surgery. There was no nutrition included. And so the only reason doctors are now learning some of this is because of patient demand. It's not because the medical schools want to change. They're changing because of demand from patients. And so what's happened is we have generations of people who've been miseducated by a system that unfortunately just fed itself. And so that's problematic because it's not based in truth nor based in reality.
Mhm.
And so we are the most poorly educated populace when it comes to our health and where it comes from. But because it's been so generational, it's hard to admit that it's not true. Because now many kids, right? Well, I mean, I have people who change their nutrition and they just go, oh, the hardest thing is to give up mom's recipe for roast beef and whatever, because they feel such a connection. I
Mhm.
love Kim Williams, the former president of the American College of Cardiology, right? He said, don't let your culture hold your heart hostage, right?
Mm.
And it's such a truth that for many people, the hardest part of this is giving up what they think they have to give up. I had a guy tonight. It was amazing to see him in clinic. He's about to be posted on Instagram from my favorite patient of the day. And this is a gentleman who, is of a Hawaiian background. There's a huge family, et cetera. And he's going, well, when I give up all of these roasted pig and, all these fatty foods and all this, well, am I losing my identity as a man from the islands? And the reality is it's crucial that you and I remember our identity is more than food. And food is a powerful social engager and social bringer together. But we shouldn't allow the habits of the past, just like me, I'm German, right? So saying that I'm German, thus I need to eat bratwurst, beer, and whatever is ridiculous. No, I don't. I don't become less German by origins just because I don't eat that food. So it's very important that you not get tied into that when you begin to make these nutritional modifications in your life, because otherwise it becomes overwhelming. And you just say, well, I can't leave my identity, right? And your identity is greater than that, is more than that. And guess what? Like you said at the beginning, Lillian, there are many recipes you can come up with that retain these flavors and these beautiful traditions and bring people to the table. I mean, my name means one who likes to eat. Esser in German, right? Esse is the verb to eat. We love to eat. When you come to our house, people are like, how do you eat so much? To our kids, et cetera. It's because we love to eat. And that's what you should love to eat. You should enjoy it. It's part of being human. So unfortunately, I think we have this generational lack of education. And then we have an entire system that's set up that it doesn't facilitate learning, true learning, and healthy living. But that's changing because of patient demand and because of the work you're doing. The social media work you're doing, the movies that have come out over the last couple of years, right? Like Forks Over Knives and Game Changers and What the Health and Eating You Alive and all the rest. These have been powerful because we're getting the information to the people. So we're bypassing the system. And that's awesome. And as a result, the system is changing. So it's good.
Yeah. And again, teaching our children young. I look at children today and their diet consists of very little nutrients.
Yeah.
They may be full, but they're not full of the right foods.
Right.
And before I ask you my next question, because I really do want to talk about, different aspects of sugar, oil, salt, and flour. I do want to ask about that. Before I do that, I want to encourage everybody because, the class is under attack. We are supposed to all believe the same thing, and what we're supposed to believe is not necessarily true, or based on science or reality. And so I want to make sure that you subscribe to whenyouneedafriend.com. Make sure that while you're at whenyouneedafriend.com, you subscribe to my YouTube channel. And the buttons are there. All you have to do is click and like or follow or subscribe. So social media and also the BitChute account, please subscribe to that, because if we get to a point where censorship has gotten so bad that I can no longer bring the classroom to you, at least there will be something uploaded onto BitChute. And so please subscribe. I'm not trying to scare anybody. It's happening. It's happening now. And so I want us to stay above it. I want to focus on what I want. I want to be able to continue this class for as long as you guys want to listen and learn and grow with me, because I am a student in this classroom as well as you are. And we're learning from incredible teachers. Where else do you get this kind of education for free? Harvard education that is being taught to us for free. And so please consider not only subscribing, but also going to my sponsors page, my sponsors like NORI, which stands for Nutritional Oncology Research Institute, that is also whole food plant-based. We have Keep Me Safe Organics, making sure that you don't have all these toxins in your body, with all organic, non-synthetic beauty products. First Alternative Care, so that you can take your health back and not for your entire family without paying the huge prices that you pay for insurance. So this is assurance and telemedicine, non-urgent family practice, dermatology, and 3 hours a year of behavioral health for the entire household for $45 a month. You have the pharmacy in Merritt Island, Live Longer Medical, making you as beautiful on the inside as out, and our affiliate programs as well, ground therapy and brain tap. This is other ways that you can reduce inflammation in your body and rewrite the program. So go to my Shop Now bag as well. Figure out ways that you can support the sponsors in the classroom so that we can say thank you to them as well. And finally, you can become an enrolled student. So you can help give your time, your talent, or your treasure. Help us grow the classroom by clicking on the enrolled, and you can give $1 or give $1,000, whatever, or your time or your talent. So in any way you can help grow the class, please reach out. You know the number, 407-373-5959. Today, we're talking to Dr. Stephan Esser, and you can reach him at esserhealth.com. He's also in social media. Go to Esser Health. So just search for Esser Health and watch his videos and watch the food that he eats, his garden. There's so many different ways that we can learn a new truth, the truth that we weren't told, and that that continues to be hidden through the commercials that we watch on television and the sponsors that control the media. And so with that in mind, the way you can do more for yourself is to educate yourself with things that may be different and new. So thank you, Dr. Esser, for coming on and speaking about, how we're not getting truth anymore, where science is being manipulated. You did an incredible video that made me reach out to you again and say, we need to get you back on. We need to get you in the classroom. And you did a video on COVID-19 and the results from Italy. And that video was so powerful to me that I said, we just need to really work harder to get you in the classroom. So is there anything that you would like to share about COVID-19 that became very, I am more committed now to share this information as a result of the research you've done with COVID-19 and the coronavirus?
Well, I think anytime that we see new viruses rise up into the sort of popular awareness, if you will, and begin to wreak havoc in people's lives, whether it be due to isolation, businesses losing things, or whether it be human life lost, right? I think it's very important that we step back for a moment and look at data that exists. And when you really look at the data that really has been available since the time of January and beyond, whether it be from China, whether it be out of Italy, and then the data that was coming out of New York City, et cetera, we see a recurrent theme. And that theme is the following, is that individuals with the highest rates of chronic inflammation in their body have the highest rates of significant disease, morbidity, and mortality. And the most common, form of obesity, form of inflammation in our bodies is obesity, of course. And so you want to remember that the belly fat we carry, or adipose tissue, is an amazing source of what are called adipokines, which are a type of cytokine or of inflammatory molecule. And these inflammatory molecules from your fat are being pumped out all day, all night, constantly, like a factory that's just working 24/7. And so if your inflammation is already quite high, as a result, when you get an infection of some form, your body produces more inflammation to try to fight off this infection. And before you know it, all that inflammation is this cytotoxic storm, it's called. And all of a sudden you get this inflammation in your lung tissue, you can't breathe well, you end up in the ICU and or dead. So all the studies show the exact same thing. They show that if you're carrying extra weight, if you're in the obese category, you increase your risk of what? Of illness, admission to an ICU, ventilation, and death. And this is all related to inflammation. So here's the problem in America, right? 70% of Americans are overweight or obese, and by 2030, it's projected that 1 in 2 people will be obese in America. I mean, it's just outrageous. And so we're just going climbing to this point where we have a chronically ill and unwell populace. Plus, we have the oldest society in the history of the earth. So this combination of age, which is a form and source of inflammation, with chronic medical conditions largely related to excess body weight, but also heart disease, right? The diabetes, the hypertension, the liver disease, the kidney disease, all of these are compromising the body. So for decades now, we've had people walking the streets of America who are just compromised completely, waiting to just and die. Mm-hmm. And so now you bring in some new novel virus infection that spikes up inflammation in the body, and it's over. So if people would have listened to this message 3 months ago, 4 months ago, had you done my program, for example, you'd be almost 100 pounds lighter. You'd be 20 to 40 pounds every month down. Your inflammation radically drops. Your immune system goes back up. And we're in a place where COVID schmovid, which for all those people who are healthy, it's non-existent really, right? It's a no-brainer. Still 80 to 90% of people who get COVID have minimal symptoms. It's not even worth conversing about. Mm-hmm. So what we're even seeing right now, right? We're seeing the spikes of coronavirus cases go up, but the rates of death go down. Well, why? Because now we're seeing they're actually testing people, and they're seeing younger, healthier people with positivity, but minimal symptoms. So that's how it should be. Viral infections have been from the beginning of time. And so many people were getting distracted with, ooh, there's this secret thing going on in China, and there's this happening here, all the while filling their mouths with McDonald's and Dairy Queen. And so the studies from the last 40 years with regards to MERS, SARS, H1N1, the common flu, et cetera, showed the same thing. The more obese you were, the higher your rate of admission to an ICU and death. The more chronic medical conditions you have, the higher your risk of all of these flu-like illnesses. So what's the answer, my friends? The answer is sure, isolation and avoidance of sick contacts, et cetera. But that's only one part of the story. Sitting in your house in fear and anxiety and dumping comfort foods into your body ain't the answer. Correct. So when you're home, when you are isolating yourself, et cetera, this is the time to be out getting a good walk, getting your exercise in, eating the micronutrient-rich foods, enhancing your immune system, and become virus resistant. Right? So that your body is so low on its chronic inflammation that when you get a viral illness, you get a quick spike of inflammation, you wipe out the virus, you produce good antibodies, and you move forward. And the studies show that the foods you eat, the lentils, the berries, the mushrooms, the onions, these actually enhance your body's ability to fight off infection and to form antibodies so you have a good memory long term. So we don't need to be scared and fearful and anxious all day and all this nonsense. We need to be active. We need to be proactive with our health, maximizing it and moving forward. Yeah. That's what we need to be doing.
Yes, absolutely. But fear is a way to control. You know, and if I yell fire with enough conviction in a crowded theater, nobody's going to check. Right. Everybody's going to run and trample over each other. Yep. That's what fear can do, and fear can make us sick too. So I love the fact that you're talking about, you know, how a healthy immune system will keep us from not responding. I know Zach Bush was asked, you know, if this is a something that was man-made in China, you know, what does he think of the coronavirus? And he said, well, whoever did it didn't do a good job because it's only affecting people who are already sick. And so we just need to be very mindful about what we put in our mouth. Now, we've got 2 minutes left in our podcast before we go to the teacher's pets. And if anybody wants to ask any more questions, they can. What is the message of hope John the Baptist, you know, Dr. Stephan Esser is proclaiming today from the mountaintop?
I think the greatest message I can give you is that your body is remarkably and amazingly powerful, the way that it's created. And you have this incredible potential to achieve greater health than perhaps you ever thought was possible. But it's going to require you to make meaningful decisions in your life. I did a post today about discipline. It's going to require you to discipline your tongue, to discipline your palate a little bit, to be willing to change your personal behaviors. And my promise to you is that the changes you make are powerful. The health that you want to experience is potential for you, and it's all worth it. So don't give up on yourself. No matter what you've experienced, no matter what challenges you've had, remember how powerful you are. Start with behaviors that are in your control and then move forward one day after another on this journey of health.
I love it. And I love all the hearts. That's the only way we know that you've been watching or sitting in the classroom. All for those of you who are watching today, or maybe later on BitChute or on later on Facebook or YouTube, just know, or podcast. I'm not forgetting you guys, podcast. You can always tune in live to the classroom so that you can ask questions, or you can send me an email. Please share and like this video, because that is the way that we're going to end disease in this world, is to educate ourselves that food is medicine. And so with that in mind, please know that you need to like and share this, and stay tuned, because we're going to continue our conversation once we say goodbye to all our podcast friends. And please remember, it is your choice. You can take a pill or you can take responsibility. It's time to give yourself the love that you deserve. Please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Stephan Esser wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job. Good job.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Okay, thank you so much, you teachers' pets in the classroom that showed yourself. Myrna, Camilla, let's see, Isela, Carrie, you say you have a question, but you need to write the question. And so thank you so much for tuning in and writing your name down. Make sure that you also, and if you've written a comment, because sometimes I don't see what you're writing. If I haven't responded to your question, make sure you rewrite it. So if you have any question, okay. So the question is, Carrie says, what can I do for severe degenerative hip arthritis, osteoarthritis?
So, I mean, the first place to start is, like we've been talking about, maximize your nutrition, make sure your weight is in that body mass index 18 to 24, consume more of the micronutrient anti-inflammatory foods like the spices, turmeric, boswellia, ginger, onions, etc. Get a little bit of good physical therapy traction on that hip, see if we can mobilize a little bit, avoid the activities that provoke it, and then see where we are. And if your symptoms are still quite bothersome after 3 to 6 weeks, then consider various interventions. Those could be things as simple as growth factor injections like platelet-rich plasma or stem cells. They could move into just steroid-based injections for 3 to 6 months of relief at a time, or even possibly a hip replacement if the arthritis in the hip is so severe that nothing else can resolve it. And that's where, again, my goal is to combine the best of everything, right? Excellent nutrition with excellent orthopedic care.
You know, I don't know if you hear it, but there's a thunderstorm. So if we all of a sudden not hear, it's because of the thunderstorm, not censorship. So you had mentioned during the broad class that you were taking care of a gentleman who reversed his kidney failure.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go back there because I know that wasn't the focus today. Today is to just get people motivated again. We just finished doing we're still, committed to a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. Please go to the Heal Tribe and join us there if you would like. It's a private group. But many of us don't realize that if we give the body what it needs, it will restore itself. But kidney failure, people that are on transplanted list, when they change their lifestyle, what? You hear this all the time, and you're in my world, but other people don't hear it and they don't believe it. They dismiss it like, that could never happen. Maybe that is a fluke.
Well,
what do you say to that?
Well, two parts. One is renal failure really starts with the grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, right? And then dialysis, so on and so forth. So somebody who's in grade 3, they're still at a great place with huge potential for the kidneys to recover. Once you're on dialysis, probably not the same potential, right? You've destroyed the ship. There's nothing to float on anymore. Is it still excellent to go on plant-based nutrition for other reasons if you're on dialysis? Absolutely. For your heart, so you don't have a heart attack and a stroke, right? And so many other reasons. But not everything is reversible through a simple plant-based approach, but a whole host of things are. I mean, I joke with people, my finger here, has 6 screws in it because I fell and fractured it. The bone was sticking through the skin. I joke, don't give me green juice and put me in the corner and say, good luck. No, fix my finger and then give me green juice so I heal well.
Yes.
And so the same idea here with, kidney insufficiency or early stages of kidney failure all the way to stage 3. So, but yes, very common. I mean, I see people all the time who that occurs for. So very powerful. And again, what do you have to lose? That's the real question. I in no way am suggesting, hey, I need this medical care and I'm not going to do it and I'm going to just stay over here and die. That's not it. It's saying, well, I'm going to do the best in medical care, but I'm also going to do the best in nutritional care. Yes. And see what my body can do before I move down this next road. Very low risk.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about your 4-week detox. What should people expect if they go to esserhealth.com and click on it? Is that a free, I think I read that it was free, is it?
We've got some free stuff on there, and we also have one that's like $14. And the reason why is to pay for the website, right? That's what it is. And actually the even better reason is because that money, I'm about to put it out on social media. The money that comes from that is going to be directly going back into food donations to local churches in Jacksonville for the inner city. So I'm super pumped. Our first church is going live in the next 2 weeks up on the north side of Jacksonville. So the money goes in, directly comes out through this LLC and into a donation of fruits and vegetables, et cetera, to an inner city church on the north side. So that's why people pay a couple bucks for the detox. Yeah.
Yes.
So super excited for that.
Wonderful. So Carrie, you said you don't know if your question's been answered. The only question I have here, and I believe I asked and Dr. Esser answered, what can you do for severe degenerative hip osteoarthritis? Is that the question that you're talking about? Let me see. I don't see any other. Let me look at all the comments here.
It's all right. And I'll talk a little bit more about my program. What I'll say is, so it's, a 4-week intervention that focuses on an SOS-free program, right? A salt, oil, and sugar-free program that is loaded with micronutrient-rich, fiber-rich foods in huge abundance. So people always text me, email me, whatever, like, it's too much food, right? Do I have to eat all this? And again, that's the beauty of a plant-based, true plant-based program. You can eat ad libitum. You just eat and eat and eat, right? Which is wonderful until you're full. And so we focus on easily accessible foods with 10-minute recipes that are very easy to prepare. Anybody, even the neophyte, can prepare them, and that are satisfying and filling. That's the goal. So
now with your nutrition, I see a lot of salads, a lot of raw food. So do you do a combination of raw and cooked?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's challenging to get adequate calories on a purely raw program. You can do it, but there has to be a lot of dehydration. There has to be a lot of nuts and seeds. So you begin to get more into the higher fat foods than otherwise. So I like to get 80% of my calories from unrefined, raw fruits and vegetables, and 20% from some forms of cooked, baked, prepared foods. Plus, they're just fun to eat, so steaming them, sauteing them, baking them, so on and so forth.
So you mentioned a little bit about salt, oils. So let's talk about what salt, oils, sugars, and not only that, but also the sweeteners that are artificial sweeteners and flours. So would you like to share a little bit about what you warn us?
Stuff. Yeah. So it's interesting. The more you process a food, the more addictive it becomes. So it becomes a food-like substance of addiction. So for example, take a kernel of wheat, chew on it. Doesn't do a lot for you. You're like, man, this is boring. A lot of work to get no calories. Now, if you refine it a little bit into whole wheat flour, it's all right. It doesn't spike your dopamine too much. Eat a little bit of it. Now you turn it into white flour, right? All of a sudden, quick, rapid rush of sugar to the brain. Your dopamine is spiked. It's more addictive. Now combine that white flour with white sugar with oil, and you've got this perfect cocktail that sets off your dopamine in your brain. And before you know it, you're addicted. This is why you've never heard anyone say, I bought a bag of apples and I couldn't stop. I'm such a bad person, right? Or I ate 4 heads of romaine lettuce. Can you believe it? I'm so bad. No, they never say that, but they do say, I bought the chips and I couldn't stop, ate the whole bag. I bought the ice cream and I couldn't stop, right? I bought the pretzels and I couldn't stop. Why? Because they're food-like substances of addiction. They're not true food. And that's what your listeners need to put in their brain and say, I'm intended for food. This is not food. This is a food-like substance of addiction. This is a plaything. But if you are someone who struggles with food addiction, right? And you will know this, you just look at your belly size. If you carry a lot of extra weight, it tells you you're struggling with a food addiction, because otherwise you would have stopped eating a lot of those foods in the past, recognizing they're not good for you. In addition, right, if you struggle with depression or anxiety or chronic stress, you're more at risk. So you've got to be even more careful with the foods you're putting into your body. So that's helped me a lot, because now I look at food and I go, oh, look at that beautiful cake. What a great artistic thing they did with the colors on there. I smell a little bit and I go, oh, how nice, like a flower. And I just walk by it. Unlike the person who looks, oh, the chocolate cake, the red velvet, the vanilla, I've got to have it. And it's like, no, it's not food. That'd be like walking up to a rose and going, oh, it smells so sweet, I need to eat it. You know you're not intended to eat the rose. Why are you putting the rose in your mouth? This is the same idea with the cake. So if you can have that conversation in your brain again and again and again before you know it, you can walk in, no problem. Look at the cake, smells nice. And
rewrite the program. Rewrite
Yes.
the program. That's
Absolutely.
the way to do it. And so for those of you who want to know, because I got a text here that says, and I don't know if this is you, Carrie, it says, what is the name of the website again? The website is esserhealth.com. And if you want to check out his Instagram, or you have Facebook.
And Facebook, yeah.
It's Esser Health.
That's
so
it.
just, and it's ESSER. And if you were a subscriber, you would have all that information. So you get a weekly blog, and you can just click on his name and it'll take you all to all his information and any of our teachers. So that's why it's so important to not only subscribe, but you also have to confirm your subscription, so that you can have all this information as well. So Dr. Esser, this has been a great conversation. I knew it was worth the wait. That's what the theme is for my daughter's baby. Worth the wait. And so we are so excited that you're on today. And before we go, I don't know if anybody else did I answer your question, Carrie? Or anybody else? Does anybody else have any? Let me really quick glance to see if I see any other cues. So Isela, we answered your 2 questions. Carrie, I'm hoping that was the question that you asked about the osteoarthritis. And Nancy, thank you for the heart. Thank you so much. One last thing, Dr. Esser. If somebody does drugs, then maybe they smoke or they drink alcohol, maybe they have recreational drugs, they can clean up and nobody would know. But when you are overeating, addicted to food, it's very difficult to hide it, because you will show it. You can't, unless you become bulimic, and then that's a totally different dynamic. What is the mindset? Because now we're dealing with, and now I'm going to step further and talking about the addicted mind, the addicted person who uses food as their hit. How do you convert that person into saying, oh, it smells good, I'm just going to walk away from that?
There are a lot of people right now that are struggling with depression, anxiety, sadness, personal abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, you name it, right? Horrible things they've experienced in their lifetime. And for many of them, they're reaching for foods that give comfort, that give dopamine. And so for some people, I do say, talking about food, we're not there yet. What we really need to be talking about is what's going on in your life. We need to fix this. You need to get out of that abusive relationship, right? We need to address this. We need to address that.
Good.
Before they have the emotional energy, right? And the ability to really make these meaningful changes. What I will say is that neurobiology would suggest to us that there's something called neuroplasticity. And so the studies on the workings of the brain tell us that you can rewire, you can change the algorithm, right? To use kind of this computer concept. You can change the how things are written in your brain, but it does require an intentional sort of path, and it does require hard work. And so for some people, truly they are addicted and they are addicts, and the rest of their life they need to be very careful. Kind of like the alcoholic who has to stay in AA the rest of their life, has to have somebody, a helper, who they connect with, etc., and continue constantly. They just cannot be in an environment where the alcohol is. Other alcoholics, right? They dealt with this. It was a challenging time in their life. They got past it. It's not really an issue for them anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe their wiring was not as intense in the direction of that habituation, of that addiction.
Mm.
This is the same for people with food. So there are going to be some people for which they hear this message, the science resonates, they're done, they're out, and they move forward with healthy living. And there'll be others that kind of are always dipping their toe in and out, trying it, struggling back and forth in and out. And there can other be people, who they get into it and now it just resonates so strong with them. It's part of their identity and they just move forward, right? They never let it go. Mm-hmm. What I tell people is I want you to remember that you're on a journey of health. Imagine walking through that state park and there are going to be times you step into mud, and that doesn't mean you throw yourself into the mud head first and wallow in and go, oh no, I fell in the mud. It means you just keep walking and the mud will dry and the boots, right? You just keep walking, the dry mud falls off over time. And so you can radically change your health destiny. And we know that even genetically, there's something called epigenetics, of course, which means that when you make certain behavior changes, it alters the expression of your genes. So though your genes look the same, they act differently. And so every bite of food, every thought you think, every action you take, it radically influences the expression of your genes. And that puts power back in our hands. But that's a scary place too, because it puts responsibility back in our hands. So I think for your viewers, I want to remind them of the amazing potential of their lives they have. And remember that eating healthy food by itself is not the goal. Eating healthy food so you can have a healthy life, so you can be the best version of yourself as a plumber, as an attorney, as a politician, as a teacher, as a housewife, as whatever. That's what matters, right? So you can live the best version of you and not be saddled with chronic disease that need not exist.
Well said. Well said. Well, I'm sure you all have fallen in love with Dr. Esser. You can continue checking him out. Check out his 4-week detox program. And, we have so many doctors that are whole food plant-based that come in the classroom and teach. There are teachers, but maybe something Dr. Esser said just resonated with you today. That is where, because one size does not fit all. And not one person is going to be able to get you to understand it all. That's why we repeat some of these conversations, because maybe it's the 9th time or the 101 time. If we stop at 100, then that 101 time will not be heard. So this is the conversation we need to keep having with your families, with your friends, with people that maybe might make fun of you, because what's going to happen is once you start eating this way, you're going to start looking and gravitating for your tribe that will support you. And so with that, we just, like, whether you have to walk away from a situation or create something new that will support you, do whatever it takes to live the life that you desire. It is so important, because we could take that pill. And I'm not against the pill, because as Dr. Esser said, there's a value to that pill short term if that's something that you need. But long term, that thing that you hold in your hand saying, oh, this is going to help me, is just going to get you healthy enough for that next dose, just for that next dose. But food can radically change your life, right, Dr. Esser? It could
Absolutely.
radically change your life.
Yeah.
But it could be a tool that will heal every cell of your body, or a weapon of mass destruction. We're in choice. We're always in choice. And I hope that today with Dr. Esser, you will get a step closer to making that choice that is to love yourself in a way that will create the life of your dreams. So with that in mind, I think we answered questions, and I'm hoping, Dr. Esser, that you'll return soon, because this has been a lot of fun, very educational.
My pleasure. Thank you, Lillian.
Thank you. We're going to say goodbye now to Facebook.